If your skylight has gotten old and cloudy, or even cracked, we'll show you how easy it is to replace it with a brand new one. Here are the tools we'll need to get the job done. Some mineral spirits, a pair of nitrile gloves, a caulk gun loaded with SureBond SB140 sealant, a screw gun, a putty knife or two, and an expendable rag. And of course, we'll need a brand new skylight. We'll start by exposing the heads of the screws on the old skylight with a putty knife. Once you've exposed each of the screw heads, remove them with your screw gun. Now let's do the same thing for each of the screws holding the skylight in place. We've used our putty knife to expose the heads of all the screws in the skylight, and now we'll use our screw gun to remove them. Once you've removed all of the screws, take your putty knife and begin to pry up the skylight from the roof. Simply run your putty knife all the way around the perimeter. Once you've broken the old sealant all the way around, the skylight will lift right off. Once the skylight is removed, use your putty knife to scrape up any excess sealant. You may notice that our manufacturer used two different types of sealants when installing our skylight, one black and one white. The skylight manufacturer is very clear that SureBond SB140 is the correct sealant to use when installing a new skylight. Now that we've scraped off all the excess sealant with our putty knife, we're going to wet our old rag with mineral spirits and use that to clean off the excess. Keep in mind that our RV has a fiberglass roof, and we can use all the mineral spirits we want. If you have a rubber or EPDM roof, mineral spirits is okay to use, but only sparingly. Be sure not to soak the material. Clean off as much of the old sealant as you reasonably can. You'll notice on the smooth areas, we got it completely clean. But on the rough surface of the catwalk around the roof, it's very difficult to remove all the old sealant. Don't worry about getting it 100% removed. While we're here, if you're interested in how to remove the inner liner of your skylight, be sure to check out our video about how to do that. After waiting a short time for any excess mineral spirits to dry, using your caulk gun, run a nice thick bead of SureBond SB140 right along the row of screws. Once your bead of caulk is all the way around the perimeter, set your skylight in place. And now just gently wiggle it back and forth to spread the bead out underneath the edge of the skylight. What you want to see is a little bit of caulk come up through each of the screw holes. By looking at the residue from the old sealant, we can see that we've properly centered the new skylight in the same position that the old one was in. The reason this is important is because the new screw holes will not necessarily line up with the old screw holes, and we're going to start new ones. That's no problem, because these are self-drilling screws. When reinstalling the screws, be sure to tighten them just to the point where they flex the plastic slightly, but not to the point where you crack it. Once we have all the screws in, we can see that a nice bead of caulk has squished out all along the perimeter of the new skylight. Since we laid our bead of sealant down on top of the old screw holes, we know that they're all sealed. We mentioned that the screws on the new skylight wouldn't necessarily line up with the old one. Not only was that the case, but there are actually more screw holes in the new skylight than the old one. Luckily, we keep a supply of miscellaneous screws on board. So there's a lesson we learned in installing our first skylight. Make sure to have some extra screws handy, just in case. Once all our screws are back in place, it's time to put down a final bead of SureBond SB140. And be sure to cover all the screw heads as well. Once all the sealant is in place, we're all set with our brand new skylight.